Ganesha Sharanam. Welcome, beautiful souls, to the 11th episode of Life to Love podcast. My voice sending out to you. Yes, well, today I'm sitting underneath a beautiful beech tree and I want to talk about roots, especially the roots of the European culture, as I feel like from a lot of places in the world, this is where in a lot of ways we somehow abandoned and sort of, forgot our roots, but not really forgot. It's more sort of like, where the focus is. And if you, let's say, for instance, have the awareness of saying like, oh, maybe let's just chop down all the trees and build boats and look for something more because what we have is not enough, then this is a mindset which I think really sort of, it happened somehow, in the past here. Whereas other places on the earth, it was more maybe sort of like, we have everything we need, nature is abundant, we are nature, and therefore there was no separation. But as soon as there's separation between the object and the subject, then the ego can do crazy stuff. And of course, all of this technology and beautiful advanced culture of the West has also brought up so many beautiful things and also helped to globalize everything. But some methods were just really brutal, and if the earth is suffering like it is now, I think it's just not the way and not sustainable. So things gotta be balanced out again, and I think it's really important to remember our roots, because here in Europe we also had indigenous shamanic roots, like there was a beech forest, mainly beech, almost like a beech rainforest, you can call it. And there were nature tribal tribes. A tribe would be around maybe 100 people, and of course maybe there's conflict between tribes and stuff, but still the basic element was everything was connected, and the people still were super connected to the animals, to the plants and to the mushrooms, and realizing that they are these animals, they are them, and everything is one. And I feel like this is a really central aspect in shamanism, and we also had these roots here. We have all of these cave paintings, like almost 30,000 years ago in the Chauvet cave, and pictures of animals mostly, which are definitely a sign that these people had a really strong connection to these animals and doing rituals and praying for their tribe to be fed from these animals and coexisting with these animals and sharing the same space, obviously. And we have all of the proof, for like mushroom rituals, and then we have this crazy long history of herbal use, like from mugwort to hazelnut to elderflower to nettle to cannabis, of course, as well. There's a 7,000-year-old proof close to the Schwäbisch Alps, or on the Schwäbisch Alps, that they found cannabis buds in Germany. So there's that proof, and we have just a really long cultural history. And then another beautiful bonding root, of course, is then the Danube civilization, or the Donau civilization, which is like a civilization that happened along the river the Danube for thousands of years. And it's interesting because all the archaeology which was like coming up from the river edges showed that these people were basically living in an anarchy. Like, they didn't find like a house that stick out from the other, or clothing that showed, oh, this person has a higher rank. There was basically no hierarchy. And also in the Germanic nature tribes, the woman and the man were really most likely equal in society. And in the Danube civilization there's archaeological proof for this, which is beautiful. And these people also then lived in peace for thousands, at least I think 1,000 years. If you want to learn more about the Danube civilization, there's a lot of good videos on YouTube if you want to look them up. And yeah, so there we have the beautiful another cultural route of Europe, because the Danube, I think, is actually the biggest river in Europe. And it flows from the Black Forest to the Black Sea. It was a big trading point. And it flows past the Swabian Alps, and then on the other side of the Swabian Alps there is the river Neckar, which in Celtic means wild, the wild one. And the Neckar flows into the Rhine, which is another really big river, and it flows from south to north rather than from west to east, like the Danube. And where these rivers cross is the Swabian Alps, a mountain plateau, and there is one of the biggest Celtic settlements. So the Celtic, as far as I understood, Wolf-Dieter Stoll, an ethnobotanist, described it that basically the Celtic culture, it was almost a high culture, was sort of a mixture from these indigenous forest natural tribes which were living in Middle Europe, and had a really big mother worship connection. The bear was a really central animal representing the feminine power. The bloodline was defined by the mother, because it was obviously obvious that when a child was born that this is the mother, but the man was sort of just in one big pool, like it's often in a indigenous where, you know, like there's sexual intercourse in all directions, but the mother, this, you know, can say this is the mother, and so there was mother A, mother B, mother C, but the man was just sort of one big spermy pool of masculine energy. And this indigenous forest culture, which maybe also had already some agriculture, but they were also for sure hunting the forest animals, but all of these animals were like living in this forest all the year, so it was easy to like settle down as well. And they were mixed with like sort of nomadic cultures which continuously came east, from the east to west, and more into Europe from like Asia, sort of like, you know, areas maybe even from Mongolia, but also East Europe. And these people had a really different culture. For instance, the sun was regarded more male and not feminine as in Middle Europe, because these people had actually a male, almost like a leader. Because if you're nomadic and you have like, let's say, goats or cattle, and you go along the fields, you know, where there is not much trees, there's just a bit of grass, and if this grass is eaten up, you gotta move. And if you have anarchy and people say, no, it's so nice here, I want to stay a little bit longer, and another person is saying, oh, I want to go this way, I want to go that way, no, you gotta have a leader which says, guys, we're gonna pack up and go now. And apparently this was then a male person, and they also had horses and this like image of riding on horses, which I think was foreign for the people of Middle Europe. They didn't tame the horses yet, I think. And so they had this like male leadership, sun male, really different environment, being in the Eastern Europe plains where there is not much trees and forest. And these mixed then with the indigenous people of the, well, forest, I would say, in Europe. And out of this came the big Celtic culture, which had this, both of these elements, the male sun and the feminine sun, sort of all combined in one. And also there was a really strong shamanic, some people then say druids, but it was like they also had a lot of healing knowledge and wisdom. And if we're looking for you know, same roots in Europe, I think the Celtics are a really good example, because they combine two big poles of tribes, and a culture came out of it. You know, in the Celtic, I mean, they went all the way to Britain, where it somehow remained still mostly, you know, like they invaded, of course, or, well, I mean, they went to Britain quite late, but it somehow feels that it remained there quite more than, for instance, in south of Germany and Austria, because after the Celtic, of course, the Romans came, right? And nobody knows if the Celtic just sort of, you know, slowly adapted, or if they just got overruled and anything, but still the Celtic culture crushed. I mean, so did the Romans. And yeah, but the Celtic, I think, has a really beautiful, like, yeah, bonding root. Of course, also there's the Slavic and Germanic tribes and cultures which are, in a way, also a beautiful bonding root of us Europeans. And we have, of course, a bonding nature, right? We have trees and sacred medicines like the fly agaric, the liberty cap, nettle, hawthorn, mugwort, bonding like animals like the stag and the wild boar, and all of these bonding elements which are really part of our culture here, and of course the bear and the lynx and all of these animals which are maybe not so present in, well, the southern hemisphere, or wolves or something like this, you know. These were all really strong, powerful animals, or just animates, which are a bonding root. So the trees, the oak tree, the beech tree especially, really special for Middle Europe. And I feel like this all will help us, like if we, you know, make this stronger connection again to these animals. Of course, maybe some animals are not so physically present anymore, but they're still present in the spirit world, and we can still make contact to them, even to the mammoth, you know, which has been a big part of human culture. So, and especially a lot of the trees, I mean, you know, like hazelnut and juniper and birch, these were one of the really essential really essential trees for our culture, and they are all still here, and we can make contact with them. And, you know, like for instance, just the practice and ritual of tapping a birch tree in like early spring, like April, February, and harvest the birch juice, or making a birch pot, because for instance, for these like indigenous cultures, we used for a really long time birch bark for pots, and really late we started to use metal. So we can, you know, all just reactivate this a bit and just remain this root a bit alive, to be able to heal this root. Alright guys, maintain your roots and just connect to all the beautiful natural living things of the European culture. Any culture, just remain your roots. If you're from South America or from North America or from Australia or from Alaska or from Russia or from China or from Africa, just remain your roots. And I see you on the next beautiful episode of Life to Love. And of course, don't forget to smile. The joy of life, the joy of life. Smiling, smiling and shining, smile and shine.